Welcome into the HoosierIllustrated.com Indiana basketball postgame wrap-up show. John Alden from In Touch with Indiana Sports with you, and staff writer and site publisher Alec Lasley with us this evening. Indiana gets the 82-69 victory against the USC Trojans in a game let's just a quick recap real quick, and I'll make this brief. USC looks very comfortable in the early going. Indiana goes on a run late in the first half, and then they really take control from the second half onward into the end of the game. And just an overall really good, balanced performance, I feel like, from Indiana. Alec, what are kind of your thoughts on what happened tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good way to put it. I mean, I think this is kind of one of those trap games where we talked about it the other day, where typically over the last couple of years, Indiana has struggled in, right? They started to gain some momentum coming off a couple really, really strong performances in terms of kind of finding ways to win games that they typically wouldn't. And you want to maintain that, especially with kind of what the next couple of games look like and potential opportunities that they can have to obviously add some key wins. And they came out pretty lethargic. They did not have the type of effort or intensity that you'd like to see. Certainly not what they had played with in the previous two Big Ten games. And that was a big concern. And I think you look at, what they were able to do in the second half. They completely flipped the script, right? They played not only great offensively, but much, much better defensively. And this is a USC team that, just does not have a lot of star power when it comes to scoring. So the fact that Indiana was really able to limit what they did in transition, a lot of that has to do with what they did offensively. I mean, they scored on 61.8% of their offensive possessions in the second half and limited to only 2.9, I think it was, percent turnover rate in the second half. And when you look at what they were able to do in the first half for USC, that is, a lot of that came off of transition. A lot of that came off of early turnovers for Indiana to kind of find a rhythm. And so they were able to completely flip the script when it came to that. And, you look at from top to bottom, I think outside of McKenzie and Baco, you have to be pretty excited about what this team was able to do offensively, especially after halftime.
Yeah, just one of those unfortunate nights for McKenzie and Baco, 0 for 8 shooting, 0 points total. But outside of that, you had another, really the third straight good performance, and really you should say great performance from Ballo with 23 points, perfect at the free throw line, 9 for 11 shooting. Luke Goody continues to, he's not streaky. I almost used the word streaky for him. He's really coming into his own. It feels like this new role of his, now that Malik Renew is not in the starting lineup and he has filled that void, this is something that I'm not sure he anticipated coming into the season, but he is absolutely thriving in this new role of his right now.
Yeah, he is. And again, I think a lot of that has to do with the players around him now, the type of lineups that he's playing in. And the types of lineup that Indiana's putting out there, right? The one big, and I think you see again the potential of what that really looks like, especially in the second half, right? Not only specifically when McKenzie and Baco was off before, just because he was not able to contribute much of anything tonight. But when you have both of those shooters on the floor, it not only opens up the game for every single perimeter player, it opens up the game for whatever big man's going to be on the floor. And so when you have both of those going for them, you saw what the guards were able to do with Trey Galloway and Miles Rice being able to attack downhill. And when you have all three of those areas of your game, the attacking guards, the perimeter shooting, and the dominant post presence, you're going to find a way to score points. And all three of these things have really kind of snowballed over the last three games. And Luke Goody's a big part of that. I mean, his ability to connect from the three-point line consistently now after that really tough start to the year has been, really fun to watch. He's really kind of grown into, I don't even want to say what Indiana thought, because I think he's already kind of far exceeded what they thought they would get from him, because he's kind of turned into a very vital part of this team, even more so than what I think a lot of people expected him to be. And when you look at true kind of quote unquote glue guys, which is, the token term that everyone likes to use
Yes.
for maybe not the star player, but one of the more important players, I think he's exactly what a glue guy should be, right? He plays with great energy. He plays with great intensity. He's definitely the best leader on this team, and he plays consistently every single night. You know what you're going to get from him. You know exactly what his role is, he knows exactly what his role is. And when you have that, and he brings all of those assets to your team consistently, right? That's the true definition of what that glue guy is. And he's now 10 of 15 come January from three in the last 3 games. Obviously knocking down at a high rate, but now he's showing a little bit more of that aggressiveness in actively seeking out some of those shots that maybe he didn't do, maybe 2.5, 3 weeks ago. And that's something that I think really can take not only his game, yes, but Indiana's offense to another level when you add his ability to maybe put the ball on the floor and find some extra points there, either at the free throw line, getting fouled, or just in the mid range there as well.
And I don't want to leave out Miles Rice. He had a great game as well, 19 points. He seemed especially poised down the stretch when Indiana was trying to close out the game. USC never really made a big run to try to get back at Indiana, but there were a couple of moments where it felt like if USC would have been able to hit some big shots, then they could have found themselves right back in that game. But anytime Indiana needed to kind of pull back ahead, it felt like Miles Rice was kind of the spearhead down the stretch for Indiana.
Absolutely. And I think, he had 3 turnovers in the first 7 minutes of the game and then went the next 24 minutes of action of his game time without a single turnover, and really turned the game around with his ability to get downhill and his attacking ability. That's when he's at his best, right? Attacking downhill. He was able to do that not only in transition, but really sped up in the secondary break as well, and put USC on their heels numerous times, able to get to the line 11 times, which is something that he hasn't done consistently enough, and sometimes settles for maybe that contested jumper or that deeper three when he clearly has the ability to get to the paint and get to the rim whenever he wants. I think that's just the biggest thing with him. But we've heard Mike Woodson talk about trying to find the good balance of Miles Rice scoring the ball and Miles Rice making plays for his teammates. I think tonight you probably saw the first time where he did both consistently from half to half. And when you again add in, you're probably not going to have this type of offensive performance again every single night from all these guys. But when you add in these pieces, you clearly see what this team can do offensively, and that's a very positive thought that you can take not only from this game, but clearly from the last few games from all these pieces kind of fitting together.
I heard the announcers say at the end of the game that this 4-1 start in conference play is Indiana's best start to a conference slate since the 2016, the 15-16 season, where, of course, they won the Big Ten championship with Yogi Ferrell and company. And granted, that team started off, I believe, 7-0 is what they also mentioned, so Indiana can't do that or surpass it, but definitely a good company to be in when thinking about the expectations for Indiana moving forward with the rest of the conference slate.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, we've talked about how important kind of these next few games are for Indiana and their ability to really continue to gain some of this momentum going into that really, really difficult stretch come February. And so games like this were games that they had to win, not only, because they are clearly a better team and more talented team than USC, but we continue to hear, right, you have to defend home court, and we know how difficult it's going to be to win on the road in the Big Ten. So you could not drop a game like today, especially if you want to try to compete for one of those top couple spots in the Big Ten, regardless of kind of where the draw it eventually obviously ends up in 2 months from now.
Indiana will travel to Iowa on January 11th. Of course, another big road test against Fran McCaffrey teams can be very tricky. They're usually very good offensively. I haven't done a deep dive into this Iowa team just yet, but will definitely be a very interesting another road test for this Indiana team. And I'm sure they'll go into it as confident as ever. Not only are you riding a 5-game win streak, but one of those wins, of course, being on the road at Penn State just a few days ago, even though it was in a very different environment playing at the Palestra. But I'm sure Indiana will ride a lot of confidence into Carver Hawkeye Arena later this weekend.
Absolutely. And, very difficult game that IU's always struggled in, going at Iowa. Just an Iowa program that's always a difficult team for Indiana to face with their offensive power. And we continue to see that this year. I think Iowa was averaging pretty near 90 points a game. So Indiana needs to obviously, bring a much better defensive effort from the tip. just play with a lot more energy from the tip in general. I think that's, we've seen some of these big second half runs that Indiana's had over the last few games, but need to be able to bring that from the tip and play kind of a full 40 minutes. They've played a much better overall game over the past couple of weeks than they have, honestly, for a lot of the last 2 years, but need to be able to kind of make that transition from, maybe 25 to 28 minutes to more 35-minute games when you get into the real big heart of Big Ten play moving forward.
Last thing, I'll throw a comment up there. Andrew Jones says, just play Bryson Tucker when Mackenzie Mbako goes cold. Well, that certainly worked out tonight. Bryson Tucker is a very interesting kind of player for Indiana. Somebody who comes off the bench. He's a freshman. It seems like he really is the streaky player for Indiana. He's either really hot one night or kind of Mackenzie Mbako-ish, if you will, and not able to hit anything. And I guess the give and take there is one of those guys may have a good night and the other one won't. And that's kind of the situation that Indiana may be in with those two players on occasion. But interesting observation by Andrew. You don't have to add anything to that if you don't want to, but just wanted to throw that comment out there.
Yeah, I mean, typically you do get the much more consistent game from Mackenzie Mbako, and you still have a freshman in Bryson Tucker. Obviously, he played great tonight, but you do limit a little bit more what that perimeter game should provide when you do have Bryson Tucker in the game. And obviously Mackenzie Mbako is not going to go 0 for any point probably moving forward. It's just one of those games, and luckily you had 4 other guys to step up and pick up the slack in a game that obviously you needed. So
we'll go ahead and wrap this thing up. Alec, any final thoughts on where you feel this Indiana team stands right now as they move further into Big Ten play?
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing that I think a lot of people really wanted to see was kind of what the identity of this team really was coming out of December, getting back into Big Ten play. And there were a lot of questions about really what this team was, right? I think more questions than answers. Past 3 games, I think you see what that is, and it's going to revolve around a one big lineup moving forward. I truly think the more that we see this, and it's probably going to, again, be a couple of weeks, I think that's going to be what is the catalyst for Indiana moving forward, whether that's Malik Renew or Omar Ballo. But the play of Omar Ballo as of late, I think you're starting to see him really turn a corner. This is exactly what we saw with Kalal Ware last year. Is starting in January, moving into the end of the season, he averaged 17 and 11 and was the key featured player of that offense. You're now starting to see that exact same feature in the offense with Omar Ballo. And it's a type of dominant performance that is slightly different than how Kalal Ware did it, but not many guys are going to be able to guard Omar Ballo when he continues to have this sort of effort and motor. And again, say whatever you want from that Winthrop game that he missed 4 games ago. He's turned a corner since then, and obviously Indiana has as well. And there's no coincidence that both happened at the exact same time.
It's been good to see Indiana answer the call so far into the year 2025, and hopefully they'll be able to continue to carry this momentum into the games moving forward. Alec, I appreciate you coming on not only this show, but In Touch with Indiana Sports also this week. And of course, as always, we'll do it again sometime.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, John.
This has been another edition of the HoosierIllustrated.com Indiana basketball postgame wrap-up show. Be sure to go ahead and subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already, right here at Hoosier Illustrated. And if you want to be notified when we go live or when any shows are uploaded, you can hit that notifications bell, and you'll know exactly whenever we do these postgame wrap-ups and when anything else gets uploaded to the page. So until then, we'll talk to you. We'll talk to you on Friday for In Touch with Indiana Sports.